You guys, I am so stoked to talk in this video about a top prospect who sounded off on the 49ers, but also we're talking about a different guy the 49ers have to be paying attention to because he just did something that only Trent Williams and two other players have done in like the last 20-something years. It's crazy. We're going to get into it in this video. It would mean the world to me if you consider hitting that subscribe button. It genuinely helps me out. But one of the players most expected to find their way to the 49ers in the first round is offensive tackle. You know this man, Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle out of Texas. Now, he's been on everybody's radar for a long time. In fact, I even put this from SF Niners data, or what is it? SF Data Niners, sorry. He does a great job putting together tons of data, and I love it. One of the things he does is he updates this every once in a while, which is basically what mock draft consensus looks like around the league. And right now, mock draft consensus has Kelvin Banks as the number 2 option the 49ers end up going after. I think that's a pretty interesting one. I want to say the opportunity for us to get him is something like 80% or something like that by pick 11. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But Kelvin Banks recently spoke about his formal meeting with the 49ers. Answers I thought were pretty interesting. Firstly, and some of these questions coming from Chase Sr., so credit to him for asking some good questions at the Combine. First asked about how the meeting was. He said it was good. We connected very well. Always good things to hear. You know, John Lynch puts a lot of stock into those one-on-one meetings. Now, granted, it's what how Kelvin Banks thinks the meeting went. So, I mean, maybe that's a little bit biased. The second question he asked is, do you mimic your game after Trent Williams? With which he had what I would say is the perfect response. He says, I wouldn't say that I try to mimic my game after anybody. I want to be myself. But he's definitely a player I get tips from as well. So I love this. It's the perfect combination of learn from those who came before you, but also go in there and try and make a name for yourself and try and own it yourself. Don't try to be anybody else. Go out there and be you and learn as much as you can from the top dogs along the way. Absolutely love that. The third question that I thought was interesting is he asked if he would, Chase Sr. asked if they were talking to him about playing right tackle. And his exact words were, yeah. They asked me about if I was willing to play any position on the line, and of course my answer was yes. So this is interesting because on one hand, he could be saying, yeah, yes, they asked me about the right tackle position, and then follow it up with, they asked me about if I was willing to play any position on the line. And of course my answer was yes. Or it could be, yeah, they asked me about the other positions. When I listen to the audio live, it feels to me like he's agreeing that he was asked about the right tackle position. And I believe that's what other people's interpretation was too. That's not just me saying that. So I'm going to go with he was asked about the right tackle position in addition to any position on the line with which he was willing to play. All of that being said, this is interesting here. If the 49ers make a move for Kelvin Banks, it would not at all be surprising, except that I don't think in my heart of hearts, I see the 49ers taking an offensive lineman in the first round. I mean, if there's only one pick in the first round at 11, right? Now, maybe if they trade back and they end up doing something special or whatever, who cares? Okay, maybe there's another world where they trade some picks around and they end up with 2 picks in the first round or something crazy like that. But yeah, barring that kind of insane situation, I don't expect them to take an offensive lineman in the first round. I think the talent is there. That being said, there's another offensive lineman the 49ers definitely need to keep their eye on because he will probably be available at pick 11. Do you know who he is? We're going to talk about him in just a second because I forgot about this other thing I wanted to say real fast about how the 49ers, I swear I'm not like teasing or anything like that. How should the 49ers approach drafting offensive linemen? It's a fair question. So one of the things that we talked about is that the 49ers should be considering a free agent move for a guy like Drew Dahlman for the center position. That's what the 49ers should be looking to upgrade from a leadership role at center. Doesn't mean you can't draft a center. The 49ers technically have never drafted a center under this current front office, but it doesn't mean you can't draft a center. It just means I don't think Kyle Shanahan's going to want with the center being kind of the leader of the line in a lot of ways, calling plays, calling guys, calling reads and all that stuff from the front. I don't think that Kyle Shanahan's going to want a rookie center. I think he's going to want a veteran center. So I think you go free agency, and Drew Dalman will be the best option available. I don't think anybody's arguing about that. So outside of that, what do you do in the draft? Because I don't think you can go much more than one guy in free agency unless you're looking at lower cost options. And at lower cost options, you have already made a bunch of moves this last season at offensive line on the lower cost side. So I'm not so sure that the 49ers are going to go any deeper in free agency. Of course, they'll have the 90-man, so there'll be a lot more slots available. So maybe they pick up a couple other cheap guys, but I don't see them doing a big splash move for any other positions on the line. What I do think, however, is that they will draft offensive linemen. No doubt in my mind they will draft offensive linemen this season. They have to do it. They have to continue to draft for the trenches. And one of those things I think that they could do, that many people believe this, not just me saying this here, is they could draft offensive tackles that could fill in or put pressure on, challenge for that left guard spot, potentially even that right tackle Colton McKivitz spot, albeit he did do well. Colton McKivitz did improve this season and had a much better season, ironically, I guess you could say. But you don't think he's probably the future. I'm just guessing. So you do want to start drafting. You do need a left tackle replacement someday down the line. So I think drafting tackles makes a lot of great sense. And one tackle, this is the guy the 49ers have to be keeping their eye on. Armand Membou. This guy is incredible. If you didn't see this, by the way, he ran his 40 and he killed the 40. I'm going to put his stat up in just a second. But he ran this 40 and he was genuinely like primal animal screams as he runs the 40. And I don't know if you've ever done this before, because I am one of those guys. Like if I'm playing ultimate frisbee or football or whatever, and I'm like within, a couple feet of trying to get to where I'm trying to go, like I start kind of yelling to try and get that extra little like oomph out. And so anyway, like tennis players, this guy is going nuts. If you haven't watched it, you have to go watch his 40-yard dash. You can find it anywhere on the internet, and it's pretty epic. Here's him literally giving out a primal yell right here. You can see, by the way, in the bottom right-hand corner, they overlaid Membou's 40 time with Jared Goff and Jameis Winston, which I thought was just hysterical. But anyway, putting an offensive lineman with quarterbacks is kind of a funny thing to do. But all that being said, Membou is one of 4 guys in over 20 years, one of 4 guys over 315 that had greater than a 30-inch vertical and a sub-5 40-yard dash. That is something to behold. And if you haven't watched it, it is crazy to watch a big man like that running that fast. And the primal screams just make it entertaining. So please go check it out. The cool thing about Membou, he has a ton of right tackle experience from this season. It's pretty much where he started all season this season. And that helps for sure with the 49ers in terms of what they might be looking to get out of him in the long-term future. The 49ers love athletic guys. This dude's an athlete, and the 49ers have always loved athletic guys. Dominic Purdy's a great example of a guy who all of the prospect stuff, all the profile stuff before the draft, I just remember my big takeaway being this guy is an athlete. And that means he's flexible. That means he can do things that not everybody else can do. That means certain things come naturally. That means that certain things just look more natural and they're not so mechanical and fake. And that actually does benefit you when you're trying to run, when you have a zone running scheme and in pass protection, and different guys are going to give you different looks and try different moves on you. It just helps to have that stuff. Technique's paramount. You have to have great technique, but being a great athlete with good technique is so helpful. So anyway, I do have the stat on the screen. I didn't actually say it. He ran a 4.91 40. That's pretty impressive. 2 guys this year, by the way. Campbell also out of LSU, another guy who's probably not going to make it to 11, but Campbell out of LSU also ran a 4.9 40. And those are the 4 guys that have done it in over 20 years, and that includes, your Trent Williams. So how about that? Something, a little random stat for you to hold on to. This guy is a monster of an athlete, and I think it's something the 49ers should definitely be keeping an eye on. But what do you think the 49ers should be keeping an eye on? Where do you think the 49ers should be investing their time and energy? And how should they be investing into the offensive line particularly? Let me know how you think the 49ers should be investing into the offensive line in the comments section below, because I think this one, I'm not going to say I've gone back and forth on that first round decision, because I still feel like defensive line makes the most sense in the first round. I think you're going to have the opportunity to get other offensive linemen later in the draft. I actually think the 49ers rate their offensive line higher than what the league and what the fan base for sure rates their offensive line. I think that if you have Ben Barch as your left guard, which could work out, no one really knows. So don't get too excited about it, because I think people like are getting really hyped off of that snow game against Buffalo, which is completely fair. I'm excited about it, but we just got to be careful that we don't know that he can keep up that kind of play regularly all season long. Okay, so is he going to be the starting left guard? I know on paper you might be like, yeah, he's the next. He's going to pull a Dominic Purdy. He's just going to come in to that role, and he's just going to own it all season long. Would love to see that, but that doesn't happen as often. I mean, that's what makes Dominic Purdy special. It's not the type of thing that happens very often when a third rounder just comes in there and does that. So all of that being said, I think the 49ers are definitely not done developing the line. I love that I'm confident they're going to draft offensive linemen. I don't know that you're going to see a really high pick going to an offensive lineman. That's just my gut. Let me know what you think, though. I look forward to all of your comments as always. I still need to go back and catch up on the comments from yesterday's video. Still haven't done that, so I'm going to do that in a minute here as well. Appreciate you guys. Hope you guys are having a fantastic start to your week.